KoitCast.
Hi, Lelañea. Welcome to KoitCast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I thought there was like a huge time lag there between our countries.
I know. I was like, is there more? No. Okay.
No, that's it. Yeah, hello and welcome. So thank you for coming. Really do appreciate it. Now, we were talking offline a second ago about referencing Peter, and for good reasons, because he's introduced us. And that's Peter Alessandria from one of my recent episodes. So yeah, thank you ever so much for Peter for referencing you to me. I really do appreciate that. And I actually like to go on a fate basis where one person leads me to the next. So that's ace from his perspective. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a great way of moving through the world.
Yes. And you obviously appeared in Peter's film.
Yes. Yes. So I've gotten to spend time with Peter. I was in the film. He reached out to me for the documentary. And it was an absolute pleasure to be a part of it. His passion is so incredibly authentic and expressive and raw for what he's doing. It's truly an act of service to support people who've had NDE experiences, but also the collective in learning the wisdoms and the lessons that have been acquired for those who have entered into these NDE experiences. And then it's expansive. He includes interviews with Bashar, the channeler, and so many other individuals. So it's quite the documentary, and the website is also expansive with each individual's commentary. So it's definitely worth checking out if you're somebody who finds NDEs intriguing.
100%. So go and check out that interview I had with Peter Alessandria. I'll put a link in below, if not a card on screen. So look out for that, everyone watching and or listening. Right, now I suppose before we jump into your life journey, experiences, etc., it would be good for the audience to get a grounding of who you are. So in your own words, as much or as little as you want, who are you, where are you from, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I really ultimately identify as a spiritual being having a human experience, and I'm operating through this material experience as Lelañea. And Lelañea, at this point in time, is currently in Vermont and moves in transit very often.
Really?
And
How often?
every 18 months to 4 years in
Whoa.
between. Yeah. I move a lot, and I move based on callings. I'll get a shift that there's something I'm supposed to experience in a particular area. It's more nature oriented. So I tend to gravitate towards areas that the topography or the geography has an expression that I really want to experience. And then the people that I meet who are also attracted to that and are there for a reason. So it's a really intentional way of moving throughout the world. And Lelañea also operates currently as a transcendental coach or transcendental guide in supporting individuals in the process of self-realization through many different techniques and modalities and different ways of really kind of disrupting belief systems and mindsets and language and really allowing the individual to create separation between themselves and the ego so that they're creating less separations between themselves and source. So the further we lean into the ego, we're creating a lot of separation between the spiritual being and source energy. And the further we move away from the ego, we're leaning more into our connection with source and having that experience of self-realization and remembering who we really are and why we're really here.
I'm going to touch on a number of things you said there. First off, the location thing is highly interesting, that you felt you're drawn to locations next, rather than, say, a person, that you're traveling to a location for a person. You're going to the location and then people that happen to be there or might also be called there, you're then dealing with. You know what I mean? Interacting with nicely, however. Is that usual to be done that way? Do you think?
Usual as in is the question, is that usual for other people or is that usual for me?
That's a good question. It could be either or. And let's go with you, because obviously I'm talking to you directly now. But yeah, is being attracted to a location normal for you? And then expand it out. Do you think that's normal for lots of people to be drawn
Mm,
to a location and experience, or to
mhm.
follow people to places?
Yeah, so I'll answer it in reverse. I do not think it's normal, average, or common for people to move in that way. I have met very few people who move in that way. Um, I think it's more common for people to fear moving. Um,
Yes.
they they're collectors of material. Their material gives them safety because they perceive it that way, and it's not a truth. And the more that you let go of material, the more free you actually feel, and you can transition and move and change and have all these experiences without being weighed down by the material consumption of the human ego to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel validated and loved. And so I have always moved that way. However, it shifted. I moved for experiences in my younger years, which meant that I moved to cities because I wanted to experience myself in the material world. I wanted to experience myself in New York City. I wanted to experience myself in Europe. And I wanted to experience how I could show up and what I could learn about myself in terms of profession, occupation, education, and also all the people you could meet in a city. And the more that I'm a experiencer of oneness, I have these mystical experiences quite often. And so as they became more refined and became larger and consistent, it started creating a shift in me where the sensitivities that I have feel a bit overwhelming in places where the population's quite high. So then I actually started shifting and moving towards places of nature. So now I move towards places of nature, looking to meet people who are also attracted to that, which many people can do that with a hobby, right? So if
Hmm.
you're somebody who loves mountain biking, you're going to travel to places where the mountain biking is really great, and you're going to meet other people who love to mountain bike. So if you really want to like move that out of the spiritual perspective and move that into more of a material experience, then we could use that metaphor or analogy.
And I agree with you on the majority of that, and especially in relation to the material things that we're attracting and collecting. If you think of like
Mhm.
hoarders as an example,
Yeah.
they are literally an emotional being stuck under the weight of their own prison, aren't they?
Yeah.
Via material things.
Yeah.
So that is very much a true thing. A thought that came while you were talking about relocating,
Mhm.
which is I don't know if you've ever played computer games in your life. I don't want to assume.
Mm, very seldomly.
Yeah, me too. You like 20, 30 years ago, maybe I was playing computer games. But there's a style of computer game like called Populous or Sims or something like that,
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
generate and start a life again. And I always thought when playing those games that the fun was in the beginning, the new
Mhm.
challenge. And then after a
Yeah.
while, it's like, oh, that's boring. And I
Yeah.
wondered if that was some part of it for you, which is the starting of the game again. Was that
Yeah.
what it is?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it's very intuitive. It's a great perspective, and you're correct. So a lot of that moving is also the love for newness, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I love new experiences, and it's not so much to distract me from myself, but it's actually to learn more about myself in the new experience. So, how Lelañea showed up in the Pacific Northwest is very different than how Lelañea showed up in Central Alaska in -60-degree weather and, large moose walking around her front yard, in 24 hours of darkness, right? And how Lelañea shows up in Vermont is very different than how she showed up in, northern Florida. So when all
Yeah, you
these
didn't have a big
experiences,
coat on there. Yeah.
yeah, and I was absolutely miserable in Florida. It's not for me. And it actually required a lot of inner work and a lot of it was the area that actually required a lot more of me to be an observer of my ego and to recognize what was being triggered in me, because I just really, really disliked the weather, disliked the location, disliked the people, or the state of consciousness that the majority of the people had who were flocking to that area. It felt so foreign to me, and I couldn't find resonance. And so I had to sit with that part of myself and explore that more and be an observer of that and better understand that part of myself. So all of these explorations and movements are comparable to people who have different relationships, right? With
Mm.
every new partnership or friendship, you're learning something new about yourself if you're a person that's operating from a particular level of consciousness and intention. Then, it's very similar.
And you certainly learn what you like and what you like less. I won't say dislike because everything's
Yeah.
an experience for a reason. Um,
Yeah.
I wonder, are you pushing yourself to some of these locations to be the contrast so that
Mhm.
you can then appreciate the better places more?
Yes. So that is playing with the concept of duality or opposites or polarities. So in the material world, or in the reality where space-time is fundamental, right? We're operating in duality and polarity, even though the truth of the universe, where consciousness is fundamental, we're operating from a place of oneness. Oneness is the truth, non-duality. But the material experience is all based on duality. Me having this experience allows me to move towards a very opposite experience because I didn't like that experience.
Yes.
So I love the use of the word you just said. We're not going to use the word dislike because it's all experience. So if we stay away from extremes of like hate, dislike, and we play and just this is for me and this isn't for me, then we can have less egoic attachment to an experience and believing it's happening to us, but rather happening through us. And we can start to shift and move towards, oh, I like this, this feels good. Or this isn't for me, this doesn't resonate, this doesn't feel good. So I'm going to move more towards this. And when I'm working with clients, I always use a metaphor of an ice cream shop in the
I love
Pacific
that.
Northwest. There's one of my favorite ice cream shops where you can try so many different ice creams. And it's like, how would you ever know that you loved olive oil and honeycomb, flavor if you're not willing to try all the other different flavors, right?
Yeah. I think more pertinent question is, how is it you'd ever leave the ice cream shop with all the flavors there? Once you go in, I'm not leaving. That's the problem.
So then you're here to experience quite a bit. I got a feeling you're
Of
going to
ice
have a long
cream.
life.
Yes. Hey, I have a question for you on ice cream, actually, while we're here.
Yeah.
Um, are you a cone, and that's cone, or are you a
Uh-huh.
bowl, or are you a cup? When they have it in
Oh,
those little tubs with the little thing.
that tub, screw that tub. I don't want nothing to do with that tub.
Correct.
I
That's the
want a
bottom of the
cone.
list. Yes, cone is always top, bowl second, pot third, and any other thing else is below that. So well played
I
to you.
agree.
Um, I want to ask this question.
Mhm.
I'd be remiss if I didn't. Now, obviously, you referred to yourself in the third person, and I understand why, because you are bigger than what you present as, is what
Yeah.
essentially we're going with. You're the first person I think that's ever gone that route with me, so it's quite unusual. Do
Mhm.
other people take it weirdly, or do you not use it in the day-to-day scenario?
Well, I bounce between first person and referring to myself, as Lelañea. So I bounce between the two just so that conversation flows easier and it's not weird.
Yeah, I
But
understand. Yeah.
it is a great way of supporting that distance between yourself and the ego so that you're not identifying and attaching to the ego, especially when I'm talking about how Lelania shows up in the world. The more that I say I am a coach, because I'm not. I'm currently in this moment experiencing myself through the persona of a coach.
Yes, I get it.
I'm but the more that I anchor into that belief and attachment to that identity, the harder it is for me to move out of it. And it's a stepping stone for me. It's not permanent. It's an aspect of self that's allowing me to move through the world and to share what it is that I'm here to share, to be of service to other individuals. It's simply a modality. And I really like to be careful when it comes to the identification of self, to a job title or, to a certain profession, because I think we get really stuck there.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a good explanation, and I get it completely. You are literally liquid, aren't you? You're moving about, never stuck in
Mhm.
one place. I like that. And also, when you say I am X, it's like you said, you can then create a box for yourself and
Mhm.
stay within that box, because
Mhm.
they say
Mhm.
we create what we think or wish, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. It's that, isn't it? Ultimately,
Yeah, absolutely. You're manifesting the belief
that's
systems that
it.
you have, and then you're seeing the world through that lens or perspective. So your language has a resonance, it has a frequency. And the more that you're anchored into, I am a real estate agent. I am a real estate agent. I am a great real estate agent. The harder it is when that job starts to crumble because it's time for you to move out of that experience and to transition into a new experience, you're going to fight it, kicking and screaming. And then you're going to have a form of egoic death, that you could actually have moved past so much quicker by not identifying with being a real estate agent. You could easily have been, oh, being a real estate agent was an experience that I had and I really enjoyed and I learned a lot and I'm going to take what I learned and now I'm going to shift it into maybe I'm a nurse now, right? And
Mm.
so as we evolve and as our consciousness expands in our individual incarnation for each individual on this planet, what we do and how we're of service and how we express ourselves outward is done through our professions, our vocations, our occupations, right? Um, and for some people, they stay in a particular profession and maybe they express themselves through a hobby, through art. But for many people, how they express themselves is through their profession because it takes up so much of their time in their life.
Mm.
And that's where there's a great deal of suffering, and suffering is self-imposed. And there's a great deal of suffering that I see in the world, especially with clients who are really miserable with the amount of hours they're pouring into a profession or a vocation or occupation because it doesn't really express who they are and where their consciousness is. It's just a means to an end. It's a form of income, and there's a great deal of suffering there. So the less that we identify with the job, the easier it is for us to move and experience ourselves in different occupations or jobs.
I completely agree. Now, is one thing to attach to this. I was kind of the opposite. I worked in a different direction in relation to this, which was weird, right? I would resist calling myself a musician for years, even though I was doing music
Hmm.
properly and technically professionally for years before I left my full-time job, yeah, my standard employment. And it's only within the last like year and a half I've actually said to myself, no, I am a musician, and I'm
Hmm.
happy being that.
Hmm.
So I'm sort of putting myself in a box, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to put myself into that box.
Yeah. Was there a perspective for you of like maybe fearing perceiving yourself or feeling like you
Less
hadn't
worthy,
really
I would say. Yes.
earned being yeah.
Imposter syndrome, that sort of
Yes,
thing.
imposter. Yeah. I need to earn it before I can call myself that.
Yes. And that's probably what it is, because I value authenticity over anything else, right? I won't say something unless I mean it,
Hmm.
etc. And it's probably that for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when I sort of, you're right, I earned my stripes, so to speak, and now I am a musician. So even though I've been it all the time.
I think that's a beautiful perspective because what you've done, there's a difference between imposter syndrome and then somebody who just respects the trade so much that they really want to feel that they've earned it. And what earned it looks like is um, I'm at a level where I feel like by calling myself a musician that I'm paying homage and respecting the art of being a musician and that I'm of service to this, right? That I'm contributing to this, at a level that should be, right?
That shows respect to it. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Lush. Now, we're going to jump into your NDE experience soon, but before we
Hmm.
do that, I always like to understand history of people because I like to
Hmm.
know where you've been,
Hmm.
then what's happened to you, which has delivered you to here. I like to
Hmm.
understand the transformation. So, before we jump into that and your transformation, could you tell me a little bit about your history, be it work or personal life, whatever you feel comfortable going into? And then I just got a grounding of what you used to do in your life prior to your
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah, so let's see. I've had so many because I'm about experiences. So in
Your
my life,
CV is huge, yeah.
yes, yes. In my life, the early part of my life, I started moving through the world in the fashion modeling industry.
Oh, nice.
And that didn't feel good. It felt dirty. It felt um like I was selling myself short. It felt vapid. It felt like I was lost. And I was in it, but I really wanted to be a fashion photographer. I loved photography. So I used modeling as a way to like kind of learn the trade and move through it, and ended up going to school at the International Center of Photography in New York and the School of Visual Arts, and became a fashion photographer. And I deemed myself as the photographer who was safe, right? So
Mm.
creating a safe space for models, men and women, to not be sexually harassed or molested or taken advantage of, because I had seen a lot of that in the industry as a model, which we're now really starting to see through the Epstein files. John Casablancas, which was, I believe, affiliated to some degree with Wilhelmina, and I was affiliated with those industries, those agencies, in my early youth. So I really wanted to create a safe space and create beauty. And and I did. And again, that feeling of it being vapid was still there. And there was a sense of like, this isn't what I'm here to do. But I didn't know
Gosh.
what I was here to do. And as I was going through school, I was working as a wine sommelier in New York City, to pay for my way through school. And that was something that I always fell back on, being a wine sommelier. And I was moonlighting, I'd be in and out of it, and eventually just fell into it full time when I left the photography industry. And and then I moved through that industry. And then when I grew tired of that industry because it didn't feel fulfilling, I moved to Alaska and started working in politics. I worked in state politics in the state of Alaska and Oregon for the legislature. And then in Alaska, I worked as a paralegal for a leading attorney who did a lot of work for children who were wronged by the child services of the state, put into really uh, pedophilic or harmful scenarios. So I got a taste of that, what it was like to advocate for those whose voices who could not be heard, right?
Mm.
Um, and I got a taste of that. And then I ended up going back into the Pacific Northwest and working for wineries and assisting in making wine and acting as a director of hospitality, and just more in touch with the land, right? So now I'm no longer in restaurants, but I'm with the land. And that felt good, but it also, again, there's that emptiness of I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm here for a reason. This incarnation means something. I'm here to be of service to others, and pushing alcohol onto them is not how I want to be of service. Like that's just not it, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And so I ended up having a spiritual awakening, which was not an easy one. There was an egoic death, a dark night of the soul. It was, 3 years of being in the liminal space. It was intense. And for anyone who's going through that, where you feel like you're losing your mind, you are losing your mind, and you get to choose in which way. Is it in a way that's healing and transformational? Or if you lock into the ego, then it's a midlife crisis. So you get to choose how you lose your mind. But it's a really beautiful process. And for me, I found myself in a way and have found love and self-worth in a way that I never knew was possible. And I'm so grateful for the amount of pain that I went through in that process. And it's allowed me to be where I'm at now. So I get to move through the world as a writer, publishing a lot of information to support other people in their transformation. I get to be a guide, a coach, a leader, a teacher, a friend. Um, I get to show up in the world through my podcasts. I have a couple podcasts, and then I have a YouTube channel that supports people in their transformation. I have a one-on-one coaching service, and I have a really beautiful spiritual community group called the Integrating Consciousness Collective, which is free, that people get to come to from all over the world and just get support in their transformation and not feel alone in the process. And there's some of the most beautiful human beings that come to that collective. So I'm finally in a place where I really feel like I am honoring this incarnation, and I'm showing up as I desired to show up when I chose this incarnation.
You certainly are a lady of many hats. From what you've just literally just said, many
Yes.
hats in your
Yes.
past lives, so to speak, and then a shed load more now. Um,
Yeah.
I do want to ask you about the sommelier thing, or
Yeah.
however that word is said, by the way.
Sommelier. Yeah.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Easy for
That
you
one
to
right
say.
there.
What is that? I do know roughly,
Yeah.
but if you can just explain.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, so it is an individual who specializes in wine. I like to refer to this person as a liaison between the winemaker and between the restaurant guest. So I would create wine programs for restaurants. I would be on the floor to be in service, and I would sell wine with people's meals. I would pair beautiful wines from all over the world with people's meals, and I would speak to those wines. I would teach on those wines. Um, I had the last place that I ran, I had a team of 5 sommeliers, and then there was myself. And, there wasn't too many of those institutions left, those types of restaurants left when I was leaving the industry around 2015. So that was really nice to get to do. And, for many people, there's a pushback, kind of a hesitation to experience a sommelier. But not all of us are leading with pretension and arrogance. So if
I
you
know what you mean.
ever come across the sommelier, come in with the beginner's mind and allow this person to guide you and lead you, because for them, that's an act of service.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I've never come in contact with one directly because I don't drink alcohol in any way, shape, or form.
Nice. Good for
I don't
you.
like the taste of it, but
Good.
that is what it is. I know loads of people drink wine constantly. Fair play to them if they love it. I do want to talk about obviously your experiences.
Mhm.
Now, you don't have to go into everything if there's topics you don't wish to cover, by the way. But
Mhm.
I would like to know what led you to the point of transformation. Something had to have
Mhm.
happened for you. So could you go into what that is, please?
Yeah, so what led me to move into this transformation was a plethora of experiences that have happened throughout this incarnation. And it wasn't just the NDE.
Mm-hmm.
It was the family of origin that I incarnated into. It was a very traumatic childhood where there was a lot of physical and emotional abuse. and alcohol and drug use and caretakers who were really collapsed into their ego. And, the diagnosis, one of them diagnosed with what I call personality disease, which is a cluster B personality type. And cluster B personality type, if you're looking at the DSM, includes like narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathy, borderline personality disorder. I call these ego diseases because this is where a person is so collapsed into their ego that they're moving through the world from this ego as if it's the only reality. They're so immersed with this ego that the connection to source becomes greater and greater and greater. So just being born into that level of trauma was intentional, right? That was a part of the design. Um, that was a part of the design in terms of education, being able to observe, being able to recognize, being able to move away from it, to do my own inner work so that I did not become this. Um, it was an incredible school, right? So just the incarnation alone had these experiences that were a part leading up to the awakening. When I was about 6 or 7, I had an NDE experience, and I keep using quotations, earmarks, um, be which I'll disclose a little bit later down the
Hmm.
line. So then there's an NDE around 6 or 7. It's a drowning event where and before the drowning event, I think it might have been before. So it might have been before, give or take, but I started having experiences where I would see a light in my room, and the light would flicker in the dark and move throughout the room, and I could communicate with the light. And if I told the light to go to the right, it would go to the right. If it went to the left, I could have the light move forward and backwards. And the first time I experienced it, it scared the holy hell out of me.
Was that
And
vocally or mentally?
mentally, it's always been
Okay.
telepathically. And in the NDE experience, I communicated with someone telepathically who asked me what I wanted to do in the drowning experience. And I told it that I really was good with going home. But I said I needed to stay because I knew my mother based on where she was at in her consciousness and her experience in her incarnation would not be able to handle the loss of her firstborn. And I had a brother and sister below me. And I knew that it would change the events, that she wouldn't really get to do what she wanted to do. It would collapse her. It would collapse her incarnation. Um, so uh, that experience had its own tremors leading up to this awakening. And then I had two more. So in that NDE was actually an experience of oneness. So in the dying process, I had a mystical event of oneness, the first one. And that's where this overwhelming love and appreciation for the incarnation, even the dying process, like was so incredibly moving, and there was nothing wrong with it. It was just a process that you experienced, and I was not in a place of this is scary, this is good, this is bad. It just simply was, and it was
Mm.
beautiful because it got to be. And the way that time stood still, and the way that just even fragments of the sand would move from off of the ground as little kids around me were kicking it upward, and the sunlight would hit the crest of the water and then fragment off of the sand within the water as it was moving in slow motion. And my hand is outward trying to touch someone to let them know I'm dying, I'm drowning, and no one can see me. And in that process, as I'm reaching out for individuals, I'm also in love. I'm in bliss. I'm in awe. And, this experience allowed me to be able to move above the water, out of my body and below the water. Above the water, I could see my mother, experience her, and even feel her nervous system as she was scanning and looking for me and becoming more panicked. And then I was below the water having this experience of oneness. And it just became this incredible movement that allowed me to have multiple experiences at once. And that experience of oneness has continued throughout my life. I've had one in a subway car in New York on the L train, um, and it was smaller. And then I had a large one a couple years ago crossing the border from British Columbia into Washington. And I was in my car and we were waiting to go through customs, and you're just inching, the car is inching slowly forward. And I had my book out and I was reading the Gene Keys. And I ended up dropping into one of the largest experiences that I've had where there was telepathic communication of information that was being shared to me. And it was, I can't say who it was coming from, but the information was reminding me of who my true nature is. And as this experience began to really move into this upward energetic movement, it started everything moving slowly around me, and everything became very bright, and people around me were illuminated from the inward outward, which is a common thread amongst all of them, a pattern that shows up. And I enter into this state of almost like in a dream, and the vibration becomes super high, and I'm sitting in love and bliss. And in this particular scenario, just complete awe of what I was experiencing. I mean, even the wind in the trees were, everything was moving as if underwater. And I began merging with people around me. I could move into them and experience their emotional state. I could experience the spiritual being having an incarnation as if I was experiencing the higher self of this individual. And I could feel the excitement of these two kids playing football and throwing the football back and forth. And the smile on their faces brought me to such a state of love. It was as if I was playing football with them and just sitting in this excitement for life. And as I merged, I kept moving and merging with different individuals. I could feel a father's love for his children and his wife and the amount of pride that he had. And I just kept moving throughout this park, merging and almost hearing the thoughts of these people. And I began to see energy moving, which the telepathic communication was telling me this is consciousness. This is you. And the consciousness was moving through the trees, through these reeds that were blowing nearby, through all the people. And at this point, I'm smiling ear to ear. I'm sobbing. My shirt's wet because I'm in such a state of love. And the feeling was, and even the language was, you're not alone. You've never been alone. You could never be alone because everything that you see around you is you. That consciousness that's moving through you is moving through them. And I could feel that. Like it wasn't a theoretical concept that was being told to me, it was an embodied feeling of remembering that I am source, observing source, remembering that it's source. So even
That's
though
rather
this,
convoluted, but
yeah,
amazing.
yes, yes. So this is what self-realization is having this moment where the switch is flipped
Mm.
and this forgetting is completely abolished. And you have this insight of, oh shit, I remember who I am. Like the embodied, I remember who I am. I'm source. And in this moment, I'm source observing source, remembering that it's source. And everyone around me is fragment of source, as Lelañea in this incarnation is a fragment of this source energy.
I want to be
And
clear with this experience, though. You're at this point. You're sat in a car. This is not a near death experience. This is just a spontaneous awakening spiritual scenario. Yeah, you're not
stone
crashed or
sober,
anything. Yeah,
stone
yeah.
sober in a car, inching through a long customs line, reading a book, and listening to music.
Now, I have to ask you a question about this before what kicked you out or what moved you into this other
Mhm.
state. Were you thinking, oh Christ, I'm alone? Because obviously, as part of that experience, it says you're not alone. Was that an answer to a question?
Yes. So I had been asking, I had went through an egoic death, which um, was creating separation between viewing myself as Lelañea. It had been sparked by an immense heartbreak. I had moved through one of the most painful moments of feeling incredibly connected to another individual to the degree that we merged households, and then um, a disruption of that event came uh, out of nowhere and with immense cruelty, and I didn't see it coming, right? So it was so jarring. And something about trauma is it's so jarring that it can allow us to separate and have that egoic separation if we allow it. And two other events happened simultaneously, right along with that one. So these three really jarring events to Lelania and everything she's known and who she thought she was occurring that was shaking her perspective of self. And the suffering, the wound was, who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. If I'm not Lelania, if I'm not this human being, who am I? And I was being given a gift. I was being given through these events the tremors to start separating myself from ego, to move away from delusion, which is the ego experience, and move towards self-realization of really truly remembering who I was. And so I would cry. I spent 8 months grieving, like not wanting to leave my house, just blown so completely open that I was receiving all these sensitivities. I could feel people at a higher level. Going to the grocery store was extremely difficult because I was experiencing these different levels of consciousness and feeling people. There was this sentience, clairsentience that had opened and developed, or I would even say it's always been there, but it was always suppressed and numbed. And now it was raw and open. And so there's these things that are happening to me that, have me actually wondering if I'm losing my mind and going crazy. Am I batshit crazy?
Yeah.
And, any person that doesn't explore that side of themselves and question their own sanity is somebody I believe who might actually be insane, like
Yes, truly.
you have to be willing to question yourself in an
Yes, you
experience
have to
like
know
that.
yourself 100%.
Yeah. And so I was doing that and really questioning myself and holding myself accountable and observing myself. And that's when I had this experience. And this experience was, this is who you are. I'm giving you a gift to remember who you are. I'm removing this illusion or veil of confusion, giving you this glimpse into who you are. And I'm going to let you remember it when you come back to, your lower state of consciousness that you use to move through this material world. But you get to remember everything. So I got to remember everything that this telepathic communication was conveying. I got to remember the experience, what it felt like, so I can tap back into it
I was
over
going to
and
ask you that.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Can
I
you
can
feel,
tap.
you
I
know, like
can't create the
sorry.
experience.
Yeah,
So
but
just
you can
yeah.
feel it again.
Yes.
Like like
Yes.
if I think now sherbet lemon,
Yes.
I can taste sherbet lemon.
So good.
Yeah, do you like sherbet lemons?
I like sorbet lemons.
But it's that thing, isn't it? It's you're
Yes.
there again. Yes,
Yes. You're
almost. It's
there
like
again.
yeah, that's amazing. That yes, I'm glad that that can happen. Um, when you were in the car and you're having this experience, was it again multi-locational? I.e., even though you were going as a consciousness through Dave, Bob, Steve, and all these other
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
were you still yourself in the car experiencing your surroundings there at the same time?
Yes. So I wasn't leaving my body and forgetting who I was. I was doing something that I call merging. And merging started happening before this event, but on a smaller scale. And so I got to see what was happening to me outside of this event through a larger event. So I was merging with each individual and feeling their nervous system, their story, their language, feeling their consciousness, because their consciousness and at the level that they're operating is determined by the mindset, the language, the perspective. It's all a part of that.
Mm.
So merging is this really incredible ability. It's like the ultra empath. It's getting to experience another individual and to experience their story, their mindset, their state of consciousness. And I was doing it from a place of love and expansiveness. And so I was just I was just getting to be these people for a minute, to experience them, to literally be in their shoes.
No,
It was
expansiveness.
phenomenal.
Here's the thing. Was the expansiveness you being here, like let's just say part A of you was here and then you pushed part B over there into somebody, or was it like a bubble that you were expanding and then that the edge of that bubble hits them and now you now become them and then them? Is it that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was myself, but I was as if that my energetic field was merging with their energetic field, touching each other, and I could hear everything and feel everything. I could completely take them into me and feel them. And then my field, which was through my lens of view, my POV, would shift to the next person, and I could do that with the next person. And I would just sit and love. I love this. I love this being. I love their incarnation. They're doing such a great job. I'm so proud of them. It's just so endearing and so much love. And I'd shift to the next person and I'm just sobbing and just so much gratitude for them being on this planet and having the experience that they want.
I want to ask you a question that you probably won't be able to answer, although you will have a good idea of it, which is obviously as you've pushed out your expansiveness and your consciousness into these people and you're hearing them, so to speak, would they be able to know that you've done that on some level?
Well, I cannot speak for them, but what I can say is nobody turned and looked at me and
Yeah.
like acknowledged me. It was as if I was invisible. There were people walking by my car, and when I came out of the experience, I'm like, because I merged with them, and I was like, nobody turned and looked at me, and I was just grinning ear to ear, sobbing, looking out the window like I had just eaten a bunch of gummies or something. Like I was just, high as a kite. I had to look batshit crazy, but like nobody turned and looked at me or acknowledged me or felt me.
Mm.
So it almost felt like, it felt like I had and I say this as a feeling and a story that I'm associating with the feeling, but it felt like I had moved into a frequency that was so high that I actually got to change um, the density, or I got to change almost like the realm of which I was experiencing. It was like I transcended and was in a whole new, different physical realm, but I was here. And that really, when I came out of that, I go, oh, this is what heaven on earth means. So there's actually multiple levels of reality,
All
multiple
sit in
levels of
place in the same
densities,
time. Yeah,
same
yeah.
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So heaven on earth isn't outside of the earth. It's actually an experience. It's a frequency. So as I was moving the frequencies, because when I started to come out of the experience, my frequency started to lower, and it felt like everything was bright, and it just started getting dimmer, 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 and dimmer, as if like a sun was out from behind a cloud and then all of a sudden started going behind a cloud, and everything just started becoming kind of more muted in terms of contrast.
Yeah. I get that. That's perfect. Now, the whole sorry, another thing you could possibly say to explain why they didn't react to you is because if we're considered antennas,
Mhm.
that sort of thing, then
Yeah.
they're not going to know that you're receiving their signal. That it could be that sort of thing. They're sending
Yeah.
out their signal. They don't know that you're tuning into them per se.
Mhm.
So it could be that. That was just another thought that came to mind. Now, from your website, you describe these experiences as reality shifting.
Mhm.
I was going to
Yeah.
ask what you meant by that, but I think from what you've just gone through, that explains it for me now. So unless
Mhm.
there's something else we've missed there.
Well, those experiences for me are reality shifting. And on the website, what I speak to is the work that I do with others in the container and even in the spiritual group that I host. We create reality shifting experiences. And that's done through um, challenging an individual on their beliefs, their mindsets, their language, and just fine tuning and tweaking them and moving in and out with them in this dance. And it has them constantly shifting to look at themselves from these different angles. And they begin to have these reality shifting experiences because then they get to see themselves from a new perspective. And then they actually desire to change or shift or create a new experience. And they get to do that through changing a belief, a mindset, their language, actions. Changing actions is a huge one. But first, we have to change the belief and the mindset. And then the action is what crystallizes the new perspective. And those are all reality shifting immensely. No individual that enters into a container with me is the same individual when they leave, whether that's 1 month or 3 months, and some of them are even with me for a year and a half.
Well, I love that, and you're right on that one. You've got to look at yourself from all the angles. That's a very good point. I used to do that for years, because for years I didn't have a girlfriend, right? And my dad always said, "Go down the Scouts, go to a church or whatever." And I'm like, "No, I don't need to. I just be me." And I
Yeah,
spent years of reflection on me, who I am, what do I like, listening more than speaking,
yeah,
so you can learn everything around you. I
yeah.
think that's really a valid thing to do. And that's the unfortunate thing about today's society, that we're distracted by these black mirrors,
Yes,
that you
yes,
can't then do that reflection. I'm
yes.
glad I didn't have that when I was younger. So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, you
bonus.
you can't have those reflections and the world that's being reflected back to you through the environment and through these little black boxes are false realities. And when you start comparing your reality to the false reality, there's a belief that something's wrong with you because your world doesn't mirror the world that's being shown to you. And that's where we're in these events that are lunacy. Um they're maddening, crazy making
Hmm.
because it's not truthful. It's a false reality that's trying to convince you that your reality is wrong. And
Or
so
lesser than, yes.
yeah, or lesser than.
Yeah.
So when we move away from the devices and we really discipline those devices and our relationships with them, and we move towards individuals who have a greater respect and appreciation and gratitude for the human connection. Um, you know, the mirror that another holds for you is instrumental in your own growth and expansion. You can't grow if you don't have another human being mirroring back to you aspects of yourself.
I love that. I do love that. Your first experiences, sorry, when you were 6, 7, you had your drowning or near drowning experience. Did you believe it yourself at that point, or did you know it? I hope that question makes sense. In that, did you believe that you had that experience, or did
Mhm.
you just know you had that experience?
What would be the difference? Did I believe that I was drowning or did I know that I was
Not the
drowning?
drowning
Or,
itself,
okay.
the experience that happened as part of that, where everything
Uh,
slowed down and all that sort of stuff. Did you believe
oh,
that
I
you went through
knew
that
it.
process? That's what I was getting
I
at. You
knew
know.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it, and I knew it so profoundly that I didn't discuss it. I didn't talk about it, and I didn't know how to articulate it. For me, the most traumatic aspect of it was that I was drowning. But the most beautiful aspect of that is that I didn't drown. I was actually having a mystical experience while underwater in a drowning experience. And, what's interesting is a few years ago, I was sitting with plant medicine with ayahuasca, and which is also a really great mirror if you feel called to it to support you in really observing aspects of yourself that are very, very shadowed. So I felt called and I did the medicine uh, for the first time or second time. And and the medicine said to me, I was having a really beautiful discussion with the medicine for people who have never participated in ayahuasca. There's a spirit associated with the plant medicine, these two plants coming together. And the spirit feels like having a coach. Like what she feels like to me is what people feel like when I'm in a container with them. So she felt like a coach to me or a guide and a teacher. And so she's walking me through all my experiences and she's explaining a lot of these sensitivities to me that I haven't understood. And because I didn't understand them, I didn't know how to lean into them, so I would suppress them. And one of the things she said to me is, you've had this experience since your first mystical event of oneness in the drowning. She's like, you didn't have an NDE. You didn't die. She's like, you were having a mystical experience in a drowning event. So all of my life, I thought I was having an NDE. And the plant medicine said it was a mystical experience. And she said, we wouldn't have let you drown. You needed the traumatic event to separate from the ego. And when you were able to dislodge from the ego, that's when you were able to really have this experience. And, all of these mystical events of oneness that you've had are usually in time frames where you're less attached to your ego. So you can receive it. The mystical events of oneness are like a form of consciousness. So I can receive that consciousness because I'm open and porous enough at the time. And through receiving that consciousness, I can then have the experience, which means I can also receive information from the field in a way that you cannot do when you're immersed in the material, egoic human experience.
Awesome, awesome. I was going to say, your these experiences, each of these ones, do you think it's like opening a door? So it's slightly opening, and then the next one opens it a bit further. Then your final one's opened it fully. Is that what it is?
Mhm. Yeah, each one gets bigger, more information. So the first one I had one telepathic communication of a being asking me what I wanted to do. The second one, I didn't have telepathic communication, but everything became illuminated. And, I call it expanding because the light becomes so bright in a room, but it's light coming out of individuals. So I'm seeing consciousness. I'm seeing the light that animates the human vehicle, right? And and it becomes surreal. I merged slightly with a couple of the people, like making eye contact and feeling them, like feeling love for them, almost as though it's soul meeting soul or source
Hmm.
meeting source. And then the third one was huge. So I joke with people if I'm lucky enough to have one more in this incarnation, I can't imagine what the hell this could, I'm gonna
Won't that be death?
Um, I'm hoping I have one more
Yeah,
before I
just to
transition,
say.
just because they're so incredibly phenomenal. And they really keep me going because the amount of information that I receive is so enlightening to me and answers so many questions that I haven't that burn internally within me that I'm like, I would really like one or two more before I transition. And
Do
I
you
hope
have a
to have a
list
long
of
life.
questions then that you've got on top of all the questions you've already had answered? You got a list of them?
Yeah, I do. I do have a list. There's one that I've been asking. So that last one was who am I? I can't remember who I am. And, I need your help. I need to remember who I am because I felt so lost. And the next one that's really been burning inside of me as is why am I here? What am I supposed to do with this? Like I have this, I can touch this, I can taste this, I can experience this, I can share some of this, but what am I ultimately supposed to do? Like I want to be of service at a greater level. Like why am I here? And so that one really burns inside of me. And, people are like, well, can't you go sit with plant medicine? And it's very different, getting this through a mystical experience in a stone sober state is far more integrating and trustworthy than sitting with plant medicine. Plant medicine isn't always truthful. You know, there's some, there's some things told that aren't always truthful in plant medicine. So I don't want to rely on an entity externally outside of me to help me remember who I am and why I'm here. But I do like to receive that experience directly. And for me, it feels directly from source.
No, that's fair enough. I was going to throw this at you then. Obviously, you've moved through a number of incarnations of jobs and things and who you were prior
Yeah.
to evolving into the next one, etc., to where you are now. Does
Mhm.
now feel like home? And I'm going to use home in inverted brackets, inverted commas, because obviously true home, so to speak, is out
Yeah.
there, yeah? But do you
Yeah.
not feel right now? Do you feel at peace at home doing what you're doing?
No.
Okay, so there's a next step then.
Yeah, there's quite a few next steps. So I feel closer to, and so for me, home is internal. It's this knowing, the sense of self. For so long, I've been looking for home outside of myself, but since this awakening, I've really been able to find it within myself. And so now when I move through the world, I move not from a place of feeling less or feeling lost or feeling depleted. I'm moving from a sense of wholeness and feeling that wherever I move and go, I'm bringing um, my full sense of self there, and I'm sharing it, and I'm offering it, right? And so when I sit in this home in myself, uh, what I'm feeling and the sensations are is this is an experience that you're having, and there's much more. This is going to expand, but you're closer to why you've incarnated than you were before. But those experiences weren't wrong. Those experiences, actually, what I do now, every experience I've had, every, you know, uh, job or profession that I participated in, all gave me gifts that I can support that use me or that I can use right now. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the time, you know, in sitting in beauty in the earlier parts of my life and sitting in advocacy and the desire for justice in the middle part of my life and now and then being close to the earth in the later and then now where I'm at.
If you had to throw a number at me, how many rungs are left on your ladder, do you think, of different changes? Does anything come to mind intuitively?
I just saw the number 74.
Yeah, you'd hope it wasn't that.
God, I hope to God that was
Yeah.
some sort of like I hope like
7.4, maybe.
yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe 7.4. But I just got this number 74 just flashed in my face. Maybe that's the age I tap out at.
Or
So
maybe that's
maybe
overarching incarnations.
or yeah, that could be.
Mm,
Yeah, you've done this 74 times, right?
yeah.
I don't know where that 74 just came from, but um if I'm transitioning 74 more times, like I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be here that long, guys. Like, let's really get this number into balance. Um, but yeah, there's much more, and I don't want to live a life where I'm not. Like, I love this life. I chose an incarnation where I was constantly evolving and changing and shifting. And through constantly evolving, changing, and shifting means I'm less anchored in each past evolution of self. Um, which means I'm less anchored to the ego, which means I'm moving closer and closer to source because I'm moving further and further from ego.
Yes, no, makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. I was going to ask you this question, which is why I like to go through like history of people and stuff, which is, were each of your work life steps important? Now, obviously, you've said yes because you've taken aspects of that with you to your next one.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I like to reflect back on experiences I've had. And even though I didn't think about it at the time,
Mhm.
looking back at it now, I think, right, that's why I had that because I used that here. Can
Yes.
you do that with your jobs and stuff?
Oh, yeah. You know, one of the greatest training grounds I had was when I was in service and hospitality. I remember um, I would come downstairs. I'd be up in the office working, and the last restaurant I worked at was Dirty French with a wine program, and it's in New York City. And I came downstairs. You know, I would come downstairs and help the somms on the floor who were working, and I usually had like three, 2 or 3 a night. And I came downstairs and I entered onto the floor, and I could feel this wave of energy. And I saw numerous tables turn and shift and look at me. And at that time, I was getting a lot of press. So I could feel some people go, "Oh, hey, that's the wine director. That's Lelañea. That's," I could feel the whispers. But I could move along the floor and I could feel the energy of like each table of what they're wanting to experience. And I started to see energy shift. And I could see a server who was disgruntled and maybe having a bad experience because of a guest. And I could see their impact on each person through that energy. So they're disgruntled or they're frustrated, and each person they were touching at other tables were feeling and experiencing that. And I could see that unfolding. And I could see, if the chef yelled or, was unkind to a server who went back into the kitchen and they came out, they were pulling that energy and moving that energy along the floor, which was touching the guests. And I could see and observe all that in the room. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And then I could really learn the psychology of individuals through service. Restaurant work is incredible if you're curious about psychology. You get so many different people who are projecting their desires, their wants, their expectations, their insecurities, depending on who they're with, who are they trying to show off to. Especially in the wine world, as a woman, so many men wanted to be perceived as very knowledgeable about wine with their black Amex cards, and they're trying to mansplain to me about wine. And, I wasn't a person that would, go along with it. I'd be like, actually, that's not
You
correct.
destroyed them, didn't
Yeah.
you? Let's be.
There was an empowerment of like, this is my field. I'm, an expert
Mm.
in this field at this level, and I'm going to say that's a no, and so also I learned to sit in my voice of like, what did it feel to be an expert in a field and to feel empowered and to push back against forms of misogyny and patriarchy. So I was learning so much about myself. That was some of the best training grounds I've ever had for what
And
I do now.
I'm with you on that. I used to work in retail, and you see human nature, don't you, when you work in these
Yes.
public facing
Yes.
scenarios? Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. Um, why do we build our own corporate prisons?
Why do we build our own corporate prisons?
Yeah.
So this might feel a little out there, but I believe that there is an incredible energy of manipulation, power over, control, domination, and domineering that's happening. And we see it manifesting through money, right? The accumulation of the hoarding of money.
Hmm.
If people collected and hoarded magazines or newspapers as one hoards money, as these billionaires hoard money, they would be perceived as a hoarder with a mental health issue.
Yes.
And we don't perceive the hoarding of money that way. And the only reason that people would hoard money in that way is to have the ability to dominate, to have the ability to control, because money has given people that ability to do that. Our system is so corrupt And there is that energy that I was just speaking to. We can call it patriarchy. We can give it a name. And women aren't just affected by patriarchy. Men are the greatest victims of patriarchy. Good, beautiful, spiritual beings who incarnated in the male vehicle, the masculine vehicle, are just as affected by the wrongdoings of patriarchy as women. It's also suppression, oppression, it's manipulation at a large scale. And it's all to protect this money hoarding individuals. It's to protect the few that want control over. And so they've created this belief system to men and to women, that men and women are against one another, that women are men's bane of existence. They're suffering, and that they need to be oppressed, right? And then they've created this story between immigrants and people of color and prejudice and racism. They've created this because if we're at war with each other, then we're distracted from what's really happening. And so when people are creating their own prison of corporations, I would say they're actually participating in the delusion, illusion, and the manipulation that has been constructed, that has kept us numb and dumb from the truth of what's really going on. We're right now at the time of this being recorded, we're in such an incredible era that requires discernment. We have one of the most corrupt governments and hoarding of wealth and behaviors that are so incredibly unethical and patterns leaking over and over that our president has raped, sexually molested, and has hurt women. And then the Epstein files, like we're seeing what this looks like, what patriarchy looks like. And they're selling all of us a lie that we need to participate in corporate structures, that freedom is in these corporate structures. All of this is a prison. We get to choose. That's what free will looks like. We get to choose through discernment how to start viewing patterns, how to recognize actions are not in alignment with words, that they're not congruent. When we can start finding what's not congruent, then we can start seeing truths. But this requires the masses to wake up. And we're in a time when I believe that that is happening. We are waking up. We're seeing. Not everyone.
If we take it down to the, I don't know what the word is, whether it's macro or micro, whatever, but let's just take it down to an individual rather than the whole. I appreciate the whole is what creates the setting, which then means this person doesn't see the real truth or whatever, yeah?
Yeah.
I get that. But we're all on the same journeys that you and I are on, right? And we've awoken for various reasons, yeah? And we see the bigger picture. What keeps people in that? Because if they must have the same desire when they incarnate here to be powerful enough to break through whatever conditionings put on us as material beings, why aren't more people breaking out? Why are they susceptible to the crap?
So I'm going to answer that with a question.
Okay.
So when we look at children playing on the playground, we can see that children that are 3 or 2 playing in the sandbox, eating clumps of sand, are not participating in the
Just
same
so
reality.
tasty.
I know, just clumps of sand, shoveling it in, are not operating from the same level of play as the 6 or 7-year-old who are on the teeter-totter or going down the slide. And we can say, well, why isn't that soul waken up and realized that it's far more fun to be on the teeter-totter or the slide than it is to be shoveling sand into their mouth, right? And we would say, well, that's because of their developmental stage. A 2-year-old doesn't recognize this, what's available to them the same as a 6 or 7-year-old does. Well, if we move that into the soul incarnation, there's a lot of baby souls here who haven't had a lot of incarnations. And our incarnations accrue karma or knowledge. So we're coming here from past lives and we're here to work out a lot of the momentum that has been accrued from a previous incarnation. And with that, certain things become easier because there's an underlining knowing, there's a knowledge that bleeds from the previous incarnation, where something feels a little bit easier to us in this life than it does our friends. And they're like, why is that so easy for you? Well, there's a relationship to that thing from a previous incarnation. So we have some baby souls, right, that may not wake up in this incarnation because they just haven't had enough goes at it to recognize who they truly are, what their authentic and real true state is. And for us are starting to wake up, who are starting to see the truth, it's up to us to come from a place of compassion and love to these baby souls who just are not getting it. And to not
Wake
try,
up!
yes. I mean, we can't do it through shaming them or trying to convince them. We can only do it through leadership of showing them what this looks like and having compassion and kindness for them and toward them. Like they can't see yet, and that's okay.
Yeah, lead by example and all that, isn't
Yeah.
it, essentially? Yeah, perfect. Now, before we enter the Koit zone and then wrap up, because I'm conscious of time, I do need to ask you this question, which is, for all your life to this point, what have you learned about yourself? I know that's a hard question because it could be a shit ton of things.
So ultimately, what I carry with me every day that I'm moving, when I move through the world, that moves with me, is that I'm an incredibly powerful and beautiful spiritual being that has many incarnations, that is moving through this incarnation with an intention. And that intention is to be of service and to love, ultimately to love myself and to share that self-love with others from a place of kindness and compassion. And that I'm truly a creator and far more expansive than I realize. And that the purpose of this incarnation is for me to further learn the truth of who I am and how to express it outward, to share it with others so that they can also remember who they are.
Awesome. A
Yeah.
well-rounded response. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And that might have sounded I was being facetious or anything like that. Then I genuinely wasn't. I enjoyed it. Right now we are going to enter the Koit zone. Koit zone.
Oh my God,
So,
my nervous system. I don't
oh,
know how to
don't
handle
be
this.
too scared. It's not that bad. It's just inane questions, really.
All right.
But let's start with the basic. Favorite movie?
Ooh, Dead Man.
Dead Man.
Yeah,
What's that?
it's one of the earlier black and white films. I forget the producer, but it's Johnny Depp in it and it has a lot of symbolism. It's really quite profound. But I have a couple movies, but that was the one that just flashed forward. So we'll go with that one.
I'm not aware of that one, and
Please watch it.
I know a lot of films, but that one I genuinely don't. So I'll have to look that up after. I've written it down.
Yeah.
Thank you. What was in your mug, by the way?
Green tea with jasmine.
Okay, thank you. Not wine. Certainly not
Nope,
wine.
nope, nope.
What food item do you loathe?
Mammal meat.
Oh, vegetarian or
Loathe.
pescatarian, are you? Or
Pescatarian.
vegan? Ah, pet. Oh,
Trying to move away from animal consumption. But
no, fair
bivalves,
enough.
no nervous system.
No, fair enough. What animal resonates with you the most?
Oh God, owl. An
Owl.
owl.
Whoa.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the company of owls. Everywhere I go, I find an owl. I have yet to find one here in Vermont, though, and they always seem to be perched outside my window, following me, or a lot of like one-on-one, just studying of each other, an owl finding me inquisitive and studying me and swooping down in front of me. So owls are my guy.
I do love that. Are you aware of a chap called Mike Cleland?
No.
He is a chap that links owls and people who see owls a lot with alien
Mhm.
abduction or alien interaction or experience. So
Oh,
just look him up because I'm not saying
okay.
that's happening to you because it could just
Yep.
literally be owls and you're seeing them and loving them and stuff. But
Hmm.
look into it because it's very fascinating.
Okay.
By the way, and this is a silly question, which animal is secretly drawing up plans to take over the world?
Huskies.
Because you've got one, haven't you?
Yes, I've got two, and they're ornery little shits, and they're so mischievous, and they're far more clever than you realize.
And they are secretly planning to take over. I wonder what
Hmm.
year that will be because they've had a long time to plan.
I know, I know, I
Uh,
know.
what things do you still have from your childhood?
That's a good question. What things do I still have from my childhood? Nothing.
Whoa.
I'm minimalist. I move a lot. Um, and I don't have anything from my childhood. I have a wicker chest that was bought for me for Christmas when I turned 18. It's a big wicker chest, and I keep a lot of blankets in it, and that's
Hmm.
moved everywhere with me. So that's the closest thing I have since the age of 18.
Awesome. And when you do move, by the way, do you have a small declutter before you move and sell stuff off? And yeah,
Absolutely. I
cool.
let go of everything if I don't use it within 1 year, I let go of it
Awesome.
completely. If I don't wear it, if I don't use it, it has to be used and utilized within a year. And then when I move, I give most of my stuff away.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, and I try to move as lightly as possible, and every time I move, I'm getting rid of more and more. So I know that, um, maybe I'm working towards becoming a monk in the Himalayan mountains, shaving my head, and maybe that's what all of this is moving closer towards. I have no idea. It looks like
After
maybe ashrams in my future.
after 73 other steps, yeah, and you finally have no hair. Um,
That's 74.
yeah, I have to ask this then. In your fridge, right? Do you have minimal amount of stuff and you burn through all that in the week and then go back and just have enough again and then burn through it?
Yep,
Yeah, I thought
that's
you would do.
exactly how I roll.
Excellent. We do too in our house. Who is your favourite Muppet?
Oh, I don't know the Muppets well enough to have a favorite.
That's blasphemy.
Oh,
Come
shit.
on, off. Get out.
We're scrapping this. This is
Yeah,
going
no,
in trash.
that's okay. If you don't know enough, then I will forgive you that one. But you're not allowed any more where you don't know. Okay,
Okay. All
just
right.
be
I'll keep
aware
that
of
in
that.
mind.
Right, you go down to the supermarket, right, with $20. Fine, $20. What are you buying?
Tea.
Tea. The green tea
Tea.
again, yeah?
I love tea. I have a lot of tea. I have tea boxes of different types of tea, loose teas. I'm probably going to buy tea.
You should go to India at some stage and own a tea plantation or something. That would be
Yep.
a step for you. That's
74
yeah, that's 73 on the way to the final
to the
shave one
ashram.
because it's close there and it's closer. Um, Here's a strange one, and it's meant in a funny way, so please forgive the question.
Okay.
But how do you sleep in bed? On your front, back, side, diagonal, or starfish?
Starfish. Um, I sleep on my side. I switch sides back and forth. I sleep on my side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Well done for answering it, by the way, because I know that's a
Okay.
bit weird question to ask a
Yeah.
lady, but there you go. Which mind from history would you like to interact with?
Mm, which mind from history? Oh, this is a good one. Hmm.
Is it me? You can say no.
I I keep seeing Nikola Tesla's
Oh, I.
face. I feel like there was an absolute brilliance there, and just on the edge, just on the edge of maybe insanity, like so brilliant. Um, and yeah, I feel like there would be so much for me to learn from him.
There you go. That's the
Yeah.
one. If it's in your mind, it's the right one. Last question in the Koit zone. Which skill do you wish you'd have, but you don't have? You just don't have it.
Singing. I would love to be someone who just belts out and like can express myself through an octave and holding that octave. Um, and being able to just shoot through these ranges of octave levels. I would love to be able to do that. But that's not my expression in this life.
It's just not in the cards for you right now.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. Yeah, singing's a fascinating one. I mean, I can sing, but I have not got the ability to hold a note perfectly, which I would love.
Mm,
So I'd
mm.
like to push mine as well. You
That's
know what I
hard.
mean? Very
Yeah.
much so. Okay, so that is the end of the Koit zone. Thank you. That leaves us
Okay.
two final questions, and then we will say goodbye to everyone. The first of which is, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities, stroke, guilty pleasures? What do you like to do?
Yeah. So I am a forager. I forage for medicinal plants as in edible plants. I like to find um, plants that are used in indigenous cuisine and work with that plant very thoroughly and try to cultivate really great dishes with it. I forage mushrooms a lot. I collect, I have a lot of dehydrated chaga and I'm in reishi country right now. And so a lot of my movement is really exploring the native plants of the area and how to work with them.
So you're often
So,
seen on the forest floor tripping balls. Yeah. You know what I
well,
mean?
that wasn't reishi. Shit.
Sorry.
Um, Yes, I'm often there, and I love being in places that have winters because I cross country ski, Nordic ski with my dog who is tethered to me, and we ski jor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so if I gain a little bit of weight, she's usually pissed, especially on the uphill climbs. But I've got this really beautiful basket that was indigenous made that is a backpack basket. And so I can ski jor and forage for chaga in the winter. And then in the summer, I'm foraging for other plants and studying and learning and using them, bringing it into my life.
Awesome. You're not alone here, by the way. Everyone I ask that question, almost literally everyone, and bear in mind I'm asking people in the paranormal field, or people, that will be technically awake people, they all say the same thing. They're all
Stop it.
connected to nature. Not necessarily doing the
Oh,
foraging thing, but what I
okay.
mean is
But
they're
some
all
form.
outside, nature,
Yeah.
gardening, connecting that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. I love that link. It leads us to our final question. What are you currently working on? Do you have a project or anything on the go?
I do. And I have a lot of projects. So I have an additional podcast on my channel on YouTube called Integrate or not, it's sorry, the first one's Integrating Consciousness. The second podcast is Conversations with Aya. And Conversations with Aya is similarly as we find in the NDE communities. I'm interviewing people quite lengthy about their experiences with plant medicine ayahuasca and what they learn about themselves and any universal truths, and that they can share it with the general public. You don't have to do ayahuasca. You maybe don't feel called to it, but the medicine can still permeate. And it permeates through storytelling and through the sharing of other individuals who are doing the inner work and who are using plant medicine as a part of their healing work and healing journey. So that project is really live for me, and I'm doing that right now, as well as growing the spiritual container that I host. So it's called Integrating Consciousness. It's a spiritual collective, and it's a free bi-weekly container that anyone who feels called or resonates with what I've shared today can come to be supported with guided meditations, breath work, learning new techniques on how to deepen into their self to create that spaciousness between ego, so that they can lean into source and they can be recipients of shifts in consciousness. If that means having experiences of oneness for you, then great. If that means something else, then that's meant for you. So it's a really beautiful community of people from around the world who are showing up. It's still quite petite at this point in time because it's new. And so that means that there's a lot more human connection and interrelational work that's happening in that container. It's a really beautiful time to be a part of it. So if anyone hears this and it resonates and you feel called, you can always visit my school community, which is where it's hosted and held through. And we welcome you with open arms and would love to see you and hear where you're at on your journey.
Super lush. And on that basis, all your links will be in the description to this video. So anyone listening and watching, if this stuff resonates with you, go and check out the sites. You will get a lot out of it. So thank you ever so much. Thank you for coming today. I really appreciate your time and your authenticity.
I'm so appreciative for you and for your style and your communication and how you have developed this container. I have so much gratitude, and it was really fun to be a part of this. I've been on quite a few, and this is one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you for saying so. I really do appreciate that. Thank you ever so much for your time. Goodbye, and goodbye to everyone watching and listening. We will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.